My dad is super smart IRL. Like IRL, my dad is a genius. I feel right. Shout out to my old man. He actually had an old GMC where he made like electrolysis, like this whole component into his truck. And if he had better materials, it wouldn't have consistently been like falling apart and corroding. But this is how my dad did it. AE-YAPS. It's in the name. This car runs off hydrogen? It runs off water? You're telling me I can go get some distilled water, put it in this thing, and go drive down the block?
Hydrogen-powered car that was supposed to be the future of the automobile, but that didn't really happen.
No, because the people that originally came up with the hydrogen fuel source, they all were murdered. Murdered!
Hydrogen fuel becoming more expensive and stations becoming more sparse, customers are furious. They've even threatened to sue Toyota, and hydrogen fuel car sales are down nearly 70%.
Wow, that's when did they ever get this high?
From last year. How has it come to this? Well, today we're gonna find out how this car works, what it's like to live with one.
That is a honker.
That's a honker. And decide if
That's what I call my dick too, just a honker.
this is the car of the future or if it should be left in the past. Welcome to Donut.
I'd definitely be the car of the future. Like if we can get away from using just traditional or just creating more fuel sources, I think is a better video.
All right, so first let's talk about what this car even is. While hydrogen-powered engines have been in the works since the 1800s, it wasn't until 2014 that Toyota first unveiled the Mirai to the world. Mirai literally means future in Japanese, and it's easy to see why they called it that. It's the first ever mass-produced hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. This
Very cool. This cockpit, this jet design, like where you're sitting in the like a cockpit of a plane, I do not like this design. It seems like it is so much harder to get roadhead. I thought this was supposed to be the future. There's no roadhead in this future.
why they called it that. It's the first ever mass-produced hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. This technology creates zero toxic emissions, just pure, clean water. I mean, it's a car that pees out of its butt.
Hey, yo.
And if you've never heard of this car before,
guys, if you're peeing out of your butt, go please see the doctor.
You're not alone. In the US, you can only buy the Mirai in California, and in 2023, less than 3,000 were sold here. One reason for that is because of the unique fueling technology, which we'll get to in a bit, but first, let's talk aesthetics. All right, so this is the...
Aesthetically, it looks like a mix between the Toyota Supra and just the Corolla. That's what it looks like. It's a mix between both of those.
Toyota Mirai right here out of the daylight.
It reminds me of a Toyota Camry a lot.
Very Camry-esque. This is Zachary Deal. You might have seen him in the Cybertruck video. He's gonna be with me driving this car today. Let's get into the aesthetics of this thing. I've always thought the second gen Mirai looks like a deep water fish. The high price of this car might have something to do with how many sensors are on this thing. I've been driving this for the past couple days. It's constantly telling me what's going on the road. I feel very safe in it, in fact. There's cameras in the fenders that warn you for cross traffic when you're pulling out of parking lots or onto streets and stuff. It's pretty neat. This thing is a jam-packed vehicle full of technology, and it also has a really cool heads-up display.
I like a heads-up display. I like that a lot. Toyota introduced that new JBL speaker in the new Tacomas, but I like the heads-up display better.
Yeah.
What? Hold on.
That a lot. Toyota introduced that new JBL.
Toyota goes with JBL, so when you have a portable speaker with you or you can put it in the car, that's amazing.
Speaker in the new Tacomas, but
I have an old Tacoma. Apparently, I need to go get a new Tacoma. That's lit.
I like the heads-up display better.
Yeah. I just never really liked the big sort of functional grille here. I think with this car being black, it wears it well because it all is just the same color. Yeah, but when you see the blue ones or white ones of these, I'm just like...
It looks a little bad.
Well,
yeah, no, it looks yucky.
Working our way around here. From the side, pretty good large sedan, I would say.
The wheels look very aerodynamic. The spokes are quite large.
This is
quite large, yeah. It looks like a very multi-spoke design.
I want to see what's under the hood of this thing because I'm super curious. It's got a hood release just like every other Toyota pretty much.
Whoa.
Oh.
I was actually expecting nothing, but there actually is a fuel cell in the fuel cell vehicle.
I'll be honest, the amount of orange wires in here is frankly alarming.
I mean, you're not gonna be working on this thing.
Okay.
People say the same thing about EVs, like, how are you gonna work on them yourself? I think that's a valid concern. And when you add in...
I think that issue, that like technological skill gap of being able to work on this car, I think more people are going to eventually learn the meta and be able to min-max and learn how to work on not just normal cars, but electric cars. And they're gonna, like, at first it's going to start out with major dealerships. I'm looking at my buddy Bristola, who used to work at Nissan, who got like every Nissan certification. Eventually more guys are going to be like him, where Nissan's going to force people to go in, take an EV class, learn how to work on their vehicles, and then eventually those people will leave, go work at maybe like a small mom and pop dealership that needs, you know, that can hire them, that can afford it, and then so on and so on. And the knowledge just gets spread that way.
Extremely high-tech components like an actual fuel cell to the equation. I'm not gonna work on that. I'm not gonna do that.
No,
I don't know what's going on. All right, let's take a look at the inside real quick. On the inside, not too crazy.
It has Apple CarPlay and everything.
It does. Pretty standard Toyota
JBL
fare, I
is
think.
crazy.
It's very comfortable. It's not too crazy in your face.
I actually like it too, and I was gonna say there's not like a ton of buttons in here.
Climate control you got down here. Buttons for the volume control, which is kind of weird, honestly. Prius style shifter. If you've driven a Prius before, you know how the shifter works. It's not quite to Lexus levels, I would say, but it's pretty nice. Overall, what do we think? Exterior, keep it or leave it in the past?
Leave it in the past.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it needs a little restyling. Interior, though, pretty nice.
Watching Donut, huh? Well. What do we have here? Whoa! Hello! Wait till I show everyone this. Looks like I arrived just in time. Good thing you have today's sponsor, Surfshark. It's the go-to VPN that encrypts your internet data, keeping your sensitive information safe from hackers. So you can look at all the hot cars you want. No judgment here, man. Stream your
It's not like this video is not safe for work. What the hell? This is making me uncomfortable.
favorite shows, shop online, and bank securely no matter where you are. With one account, you can protect all your devices simultaneously, all for one price. You can choose from thousands of servers worldwide for super fast speeds and access geo-blocked content. If you want to keep your online browsing and YouTube watching to yourself, secure your privacy with Surfshark. Try it out right now with a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code DONUTMedia for an extra 3 months free at surfshark.deals/donutmedia. That's code donutmedia to get 3 extra months of protection for free.
So how the heck does this thing move around using hydrogen anyway? Well, to answer that question, I've got just the guy for the job.
Jerry the Science Dude.
All right, these guys are good. These guys are good.
Jerry the Science Dude.
So how do we get this puppy moving? Well, to kick things off, you'll need hydrogen. And you're in luck because it
That's water, right?
just so happens to be the most abundant element in the universe. Also, it's highly flammable. But the Mirai doesn't ignite its fuel with a spark plug like an internal combustion engine would. In fact, it kind of does something a lot cooler. It turns it into water. The second generation Mirai, like the one we have, stores up to 5.6 kilograms, that's 12.35 pounds, of hydrogen between 3 carbon fiber fuel tanks at a super high pressure of 10,000 PSI. When you press the accelerator, hydrogen from the fuel tanks and oxygen from the intake are sent on a collision course straight to the fuel cell. And it's there where the magic happens. But what is a fuel cell? Well, put very simply, it's 2 plates separated by a sort of filter. Air
It's like a piece of stainless steel, right? That has a little electric current running through it, ionizing the water inside of it.
and hydrogen enter the fuel cell on opposite sides. Hydrogen in pairs as H2 into one plate and air into the other. Inside the hydrogen plate is a platinum catalyst. And what that does is strip the electron from the hydrogen atom. The protons are then drawn towards the oxygen in the air on the other side of the cell. To get there, they pass through something called a proton exchange membrane. That's the filter we mentioned earlier, which keeps the electrons out. And this is the most important part because these electrons are what power the car. As the hydrogen protons travel towards the oxygen, the electrons, they're left behind and are forced out and sent to the PCU, the power control unit, as electrical current, which distributes power to the electric motor and drives the wheel. If the PCU receives more energy than it needs, it sends the excess to a battery so you can use it later. Very, very cool. So the electrons help power the car, but what happened to those hydrogen atoms? The hydrogen meets up with its buddy oxygen to form water, and that's the stuff getting leaked out all over the LA streets.
Oh, that's real nice.
Mirai P, I call it. Glug, glug, glug. That's not water. So how much power does this create exactly? Well, not much. Less than 1 volt gets produced from one of these fuel cells. But the Mirai doesn't just have one fuel cell. Oh no,
It has
actually
three?
has 320 separate fuel cell layers combined into
So it can make 320 volts of energy? Is that what you're telling me?
something called a fuel cell stack. And that gives us enough power to make 182 electric ponies. This might sound really inefficient, but it's actually way more efficient than an internal combustion engine. The Mirai's fuel cell stack operates at over 60%
Wow.
efficiency compared to 30 to 40% of a modern ICE. Is this the future?
Wow.
Well, it could be, but currently there's way more investment in EV technology, which can operate up to 90% efficiency. Science rules. Chill.
Jerry the Science Dude.
Honestly, once more, I think having multiple forms of fuel source, whether it be hydrogen, EV, or just straight up combustion engine, I think it's a good thing. We should have more of it. But the biggest issue, I think the thing holding this back, and I'll probably get to it in this video, is just the infrastructure. We don't have a lot of EV charging stations. We have a hell of a lot less hydrogen charging stations.
Feel the power of hydrogen, deal. Oh! I will say, on the street, this is a great car.
Well, I am sitting passenger princess, so I
Yeah.
mean, I don't really have like a good impression of it at first. I can't really figure out what to do with my legs. Foot placement here is like odd. Maybe it's because
Maybe you can adjust your seat if you want. That's,
no, this is as far back and
Oh,
as far down as
really?
it goes. Yeah.
No kidding.
And I'm touching the ceiling if I sit up straight.
Yeah.
The car itself actually does feel kind of big, but the inside feels very small.
It feels pretty small.
Yeah, it
I
feels
just
compact.
think that's a byproduct of
I also think it's a byproduct of this weird ass design where it's like this is for the pilot of the plane and this is for the co-pilot.
having a hydrogen tank right
Under
us
us,
here,
yeah.
and the fuel cell in front of us, and more tanks behind us. There's just not going to be a ton of space in here.
Yeah, the sound is weird.
Ooh! I think that's fake, but
Oh.
maybe not.
To describe it, it sort of sounds like if you were being transported up into a UFO. Oh,
Yes,
it's the same
Yes.
sound you would hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a great car in traffic. Even though it's pretty long, it doesn't feel big. Probably because I'm low to the ground. And I've got really great visibility out the front. I can see everything that's going on right now. So this is a 2023 limited trim Mirai. It's got a modest 182 horsepower, 300 foot-pounds of torque. Not bad. I can go 0 to 60 in 9.2 seconds.
Yikes.
Now that we know how this thing works, let's get into the biggest difference between this and any other car on the road, which is refueling. First,
Yeah.
how far can you get on a tank of hydrogen? Toyota says pretty freaking far, but customers say otherwise. Toyota claims that the Mirai gets between 357 and 402 miles of range. It's pretty good. That's twice my car. And it's much higher than your average EV, which only gets about 250 miles on one charge. Mirai sounds like a pretty sweet deal if that figure is actually true. There are currently 48 fueling stations in the state of California, mostly clustered in the San Fran and LA areas. Now, that might not sound too bad, but to put that into perspective, there are over 10,000 regular gas stations in the state. All right, so here's
That's what I'm saying. The infrastructure for these things being hydrogen EV vehicles is what's holding it back.
a little app that shows all the hydrogen stations in SoCal. We are located in Inglewood, California. Now, the nearest one to us is right near LAX, but you can see the icon there is red. It's got only, oh, it's closed. Doesn't have any fuel, just closed. So that's not gonna work. What about this one over here in Marina del Rey? It's offline and only has 5 kilograms of fuel available at their facility. Not very convenient. You'll see
Yikes.
similar to these other stations that are close to us. This guy right here, it's limited, 2 kilograms. And not only are there not very many hydrogen stations to choose from, but many of them are broken or could be out of hydrogen on any given day. And what's worse is
That's
that you
not
can
good.
drive a long way to get to a station that the app says is working, wasting a good amount of your precious fuel in the process, and then it could be closed anyway. Or there might be a massive line, or the guy who got there just before you had the pump freeze to his car. Yes, that is a thing that can happen. Now, refueling seems like a nightmare and is one of the biggest problems that the Mirai is currently facing. So with all that being said, let's go take a chance on one of these pumps and see how it's done. We're waiting. There's only one thing here. That could be seen as a failure, having long wait times here. But dude, when gas stations were first introduced, I'm sure there was only like one in town. You had to wait. Remember how long it took to get a PS5? I mean, it sucks. And I'm sure living with it.
True, you couldn't get a like they announced the PS5, and you couldn't realistically get one until like 18 months later. So it's inconvenient, but this is true. This is like the growing pains of introducing new technology into, you know, your society.
Would also suck and having to wait sometimes, like in the real world. Yeah, that is a major inconvenience. Let's pull in here before someone else takes it. Whoa, what is that?
Can I take that off?
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Exciting.
Yeah, that's... What is that?
That looks like a PayPal thing where you have to like pull that back, push the thing in, and then let it release. Like,
It's like an air chuck.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
a big old air chuck. Connect nozzle to vehicle. Press onto car. Ooh, that's cold. That's like cold.
Holy smokes. That is a honker.
That's a honker.
push that thing in.
There we
Yeah.
go. Dude, it is like a big old air chuck.
That's cool. So,
Press H70.
Eventually, there's going to be hydrogen 70, hydrogen 68, hydrogen 72.
Now it's filling. We actually didn't use too much hydrogen the past couple days. It's an efficient vehicle, so it has a nearly full tank. So we actually would have to find a high pressure pump. There's actually two different kinds of pumps. There's a lower pressure one and a high pressure one. If you want to get a full tank, you have to go to a high pressure one because as the tanks fill, more
Yeah, you need more pressure to be able to put into the vehicle.
pressure
Wow.
builds up. Let's say we're like 3/4 tank and above. If we went to a low pressure one, we wouldn't be able to fill up more because the pressure in the tanks would override the pressure in the pump itself.
that's interesting. I
That's not good.
also noticed this is measured in kilograms, which is
Yes.
kind of interesting because, like, obviously, everything else is measured in gallons when you come to a gas station.
So we got nearly a kilogram, 1 kilogram of hydrogen fuel, $27. What? Now,
$27.70 to be exact.
nice and cold, feel that.
I was expecting like $7. $27?
The chuck cold? Oh, that's ice cold.
Let me see. Is it possible that this freezes to this if it gets cold?
That is possible. That is something that Toyota says can happen. I don't know, that was pretty cool. It's same, but different.
It feels very secure, though.
It's like when you go to Europe and the plugs are different. You're like, why does it look like that? It's doing the same thing. All right, deal. Are we leaving the fueling process in the past, or do you feel like it's the future?
I feel like it's kind of the future.
It was.
Yeah, this is the future. Once more, the limitation is just the amount of infrastructure that's been put into this. Only being in California, only having 18 or like a handful of them. In 100 years, which no one wants to hear, but in 100 years there'll be a shit ton more of these things.
Super simple. You know, obviously inconveniences aside, that was just like filling up a car.
Yeah, for sure.
While the Mirai is green and only emits water from the tailpipe, we still need to address something that I feel is pretty overlooked. The environmental impact of getting that hydrogen gas to the pump in the first place. Jerry, take it away.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Jerry the science dude.
Jerry.
All right, so despite being so common, hydrogen is usually combined with other elements when found in nature, like oxygen,
Yep.
to form water. So hydrogen gas has to be produced. Like electricity, the cleanliness of hydrogen depends on how it was sourced. And there are essentially 3 different tiers of hydrogen gas production. Each one is made a different way and is better or worse for their environment. There are gray, blue, and green. Gray hydrogen is the easiest and cheapest way to make hydrogen.
There we
It's
go.
made by burning fossil fuels, like coal, and it
Huh.
creates a bunch of carbon monoxide in the process. Now, I know what you might be thinking, and you might be thinking, that doesn't sound very good for the environment. Well, you'd be right. While the total emissions are lower than those made by fossil fuel production, it's not by much, and it almost negates the whole clean energy that the Mirai is trying to achieve. And to make
Yeah,
things
because in order to get the fuel, you have to burn the energy. It's definitely counterproductive.
worse, most hydrogen produced right now is gray hydrogen. Blue hydrogen is also produced by messing around with fossil fuels. It's a little cleaner because the carbon emissions are captured and stored underground. But it's expensive, it's impractical, and it's not very commonly used. Lastly, we have green hydrogen, the best hydrogen. This type is made by splitting water molecules with electricity in a process called electrolysis. So here I have a power
My dad is super smart IRL. Like IRL, my dad is a genius. I feel, right? Shout out to my old man. He actually had an old GMC where he made like an electrolysis, like this whole component into his truck. And if he had better materials, it wouldn't have consistently been like falling apart and corroding. But this is how my dad did it.
Power supply with 2 leads next to some stainless steel hardware sitting in a salt solution of water. Now when I apply some current through that water,
The
I get little
bubbles.
bubbles forming. So that electricity is splitting the water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. And that one that's got a lot of bubbles, that's hydrogen. Now imagine if I were to replace this power source with, say, a solar panel. I could essentially get free hydrogen production. All I would need would be the sun and some water. Hooray! The problem is, it's very expensive, but luckily, the cost is coming down, albeit slowly.
Once more, as technology improves, the price of this will go down. The use of hydrogen will go up, and I think it is the future.
Does Jerry the science guy think hydrogen is the way of the future? Well, I think it could be. You have a lot of sun that's for free, and you got a lot of water that's also for free.
Yeah.
If you could get solar panels that are efficient enough, you can make green hydrogen production a really sustainable thing. And if you can get engineers to produce cool engines that can run on hydrogen, you get the best of both worlds.
Yep.
Jerry the science dude.
Jerry.
So the last couple days that I've had with the Mirai have been a pretty interesting experience, but you might be wondering, what do people who actually paid money for these cars think?
To put it mildly, people aren't happy.
Any regrets? I work in academia. Intel researching fuel cells. I debate between a Tesla and a Mirai. Hydrogen will most likely be the future. However, do you like all your cars? Any regrets? I live in NorCal. There are a couple H2 stations near me. This car's range is fine for my daily commute. Thanks for the help. The stations usually have 1 or 2 tanks for the first use. To drop off, this tank can take 20 to 40 minutes depending on the volume of customers. We finally got rid of my wife's Mirai when I had to wait 3 hours in line to fill up a 3/4 tank. Yikes. If a major car company were to dump a whole bunch of money into new stations, then yeah, so this is what we're going to be talking about is much more. It's just the car itself, good, but everything else about it is just so much of a pain in the ass because there's not enough infrastructure in it right now. I love my MRI, but the dealers don't tell you how annoying the fuel situation could be. You're always thinking about how empty your car is. Sometimes stations can be down for multiple days. That's unacceptable. And if they're up, then they're gonna have long lines. I live near plenty of reliable stations, but it's still not 100%. The car itself is nice and it's a nice ride, but sometimes I do regret getting it during the times filling up is difficult. This is why they offer so much a discount, gas cards, etc.
Besides difficulties with refueling, consumers are finding that the Mirai doesn't get even close to as good of a range as Toyota advertised. Instead of 400 miles on a tank of hydrogen, many people are claiming to only be getting around 280. This has led many to ask Toyota to buy back their vehicles, and some are even looking to sue Toyota for misleading them. Not a great look for your
Brother, but it is kind of true. If you're claiming the car gets 300 to 400 miles to the gallon, it's consistently getting 280. There's not enough fuel stations. You kind of did overpromise and underdeliver.
new futuristic technology.
Another problem people have is the price. The Mirai is not a cheap vehicle. The base price is over $51,000, and the higher trim limited edition costs an eye-watering $67,000. For 67 grand, you could get a nice M340i. Now, there's a lot of options out there for the...
Especially in that ballpark range, there's a lot of options. You get a new Tesla, the new ones. You could even get like a cheap Tesla truck.
$67,000 mark that all drawbacks considered with the Mirai, I would probably choose over this car.
Hydrogen gas is also very pricey. A full tank of this stuff could cost you around 200 buckaroos. And as we've discussed, the tank will probably...
What? $200 to fill up a car? Nah.
not get you as far as a cheaper tank of gasoline. And it's substantially more expensive to run a Mirai than just a pure EV.
Not great. One of the reasons the cost is staying so high for these cars is the lack of mass adoption. Toyota has described this as a chicken or the egg scenario. It's a common problem that new technologies face. Consumers aren't buying the Mirai because there are so few fueling stations that they could use. However, no one is making more fueling stations because so few people own these cars. It's a difficult problem, and one that likely won't be solved without major government subsidies and development. Luckily, there's never been a company that takes advantage of government subsidies.
And one way Toyota is trying to combat this is by offering sane purchase incentives.
Honestly, though, if you want the government to create subsidies, you're going to have people in the private sector to be able to run those subsidies. So even though Elon is kind of getting, a bad look for having a multi-million-dollar contract that came from the Joe Biden administration first, it's still, I get why people have hesitancy with it.
They recently announced a $22,000 incentive for the base model and a $40,000 incentive for the limited edition. That's this one right here. That's a 60% discount. They've also started giving new buyers a $15,000 fuel card, which is supposedly supposed to pay for 30,000 miles of range. But we don't know if that actually covers 30,000 miles of range.
I mean, 15 grand in fuel is
Still pretty good. I'd like a
I'd take that.
$15,000 gas card.
I wouldn't kick that out of my tank. But at the end of the day, the people buying these hydrogen vehicles aren't necessarily trying to find the cheapest car possible. They're trying to be on the cutting edge, to be among the first to adopt what could very well be the next big thing in the
That is very fair.
automotive industry. Perhaps one day, green hydrogen will be easier and cheaper to produce, hydrogen fuel stations will be more abundant, and all this discussion will be put to bed.
Yeah, I think, honestly, God, I think, once more, I've said it a couple times in this video already, but I genuinely think that the future is just going to be multiple kinds of fuel. And gas stations are going to be like known as recharge stations, whether you have a combustion engine, an EV vehicle, or you pull around back to fill up your hydrogen. I think that's just going to be the future. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, then please like the video, subscribe, and if you really like it, then share it with some of your friends. My goal here is to spread a positive message while sprinkling my 2 cents on big topics like American, Indian, and world geopolitics, and even small stuff like Twitch drama and online debacles. And if you want to see it live, come join me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/ActuallyElrod. That's where I'm going to do all my reactions, and after the reactions, that's where we get down a game. And if you're like, hey, I have a video that I want this dude to sprinkle his 2 cents on, then come over on my Discord and let me know and join the community there. And while we're at it, I have to say thank you to everybody who's made that Discord just so poppin'. I never thought I'd have a Discord that's so flowing. It's really cool to see. Shout out to you, Bobby, Omni, Demon, all of you who have been in there who are just super active. Logie, you're the man. Logie is the one who's like modding and helping run the server, so thank you, Logie. Lastly, I challenge you. I have a challenge for you. Make somebody laugh today. We all know there's enough hate and vitriol in the world. If energy is contagious like the flu, then let's spread and get everyone contagious with our positive energy, right? Not negative energy, because there's so much of that. And if we could just be a small little change in someone's day, then you never know. Maybe that's the thing that starts shifting this world to a happier, healthier, just better place. And with all of that said and done, thank you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.